Hey, what is going on, guys? And today I will show you all the tactical rifles with the best class setup in Call of Duty Black Ops 4, and then I'm going to rank them worst to best. Welcome, guys, my name is Anders from Games Network, and we're currently in the custom game menu where I'm going to show you all the 3 tactical rifles, and these are the AUGER DMR, the ABR 223, and the SWORDFISH. The AUGER is a semi-automatic tactical rifle, and the ABR is a 3-round burst tactical rifle, and the SWORDFISH is a 4-round burst tactical rifle. I'm going to first talk about the AUGER, and this gun is mainly really good for long range, but lacks a little bit for close range. But with my setup, it is really good for even more better for long range, and you can actually compete for close range as well. This gun, for optics, you can run Reflex, Recon, Holographic, Dual Zoom, Threat Detector, and the NVER. And for attachments, you have High Caliber, FMG, Long Barrel, Laser Sight, High Caliber 2, FMG 2, and Fast Mags. What I use here is the Reflex sight. Tactical rifles has a just a scope attached to it, but I use a Reflex here because the scope, what is already on the gun, is kind of bad, so I would suggest using a Reflex, and Reflex is also good for close range. For attachment, I use High Caliber 1 and 2 because this makes the gun really strong, and even more strong from long range. This gun is really accurate and has low recoil, so getting those shots to the upper chest are very easy to get, but you have to focus on the upper chest with this weapon. It is pretty easy because it's so accurate, but if you do not shoot this gun from the upper chest, you're going to lose mostly the close range fights. So you definitely want to aim for the upper chest, and headshots with the weapon are really deadly, and they can just hit. You have to hit 2 rounds to even kill a guy from the upper chest when using high caliber rounds. So that is really great. For the other attachments, FMG is pretty much useless, and long barrel, this gun doesn't really need the long range with the extra damage from high caliber. You're going to kill them anyway. Laser sight, I do not recommend hip fire on the semi-automatic. It is really bad. Fast mag can really help you reload faster, but you don't really need it. This gun also has an operator mod, and that is double tap, that makes the gun into a 2 burst weapon. But I would say the gun doesn't really need it. It increases the fire rate a little bit, but the recoil is also a little bit weird when using it. So I suggest just not using it. Just the semi-automatic is fine for this weapon. And for the gear, I use the dim shot. It's my self-preference, but you can choose whatever you want. And for the perk, I use engineer. And there's a lot of equipment in this game, and you need this to counter them. So you basically don't need flak jacket and tactical mask that much if you can already see the equipment. And for the second perk, I use dexterity because you're much faster in doing everything. Or you could use cold-blooded to counter the abilities, equipment, and the score streaks. And for perk 3, I run Ghost. UAV gets literally spammed in this game, and you don't want to get killed because the enemy sees you on the radar. And same goes for Dead Silence, to just move quietly and counter the sensor from the gear. And for the white card is just for the Dead Silence perk. So coming up next is the ABR. This is a 3 burst tactical rifle. What is pretty and generally good, but I think the burst fire and the damage lacks a little bit, surviving against close range. So very optics, you have Reflex, Recon, Holographic, and the ELO and the NVER. For the attachments, you have Laser Sight, Quickdraw, Stock, Extended Max, Laser Sight 2, Grip, Stock 2, and Suppressor. And the operator mod, the Repeater. What I use here is, again, a Reflex, because the scope what is already on the gun is okay, but I would suggest Reflex better. And you could use the ELO sight, but I think the ELO sight is on this gun a little bit weird, so I recommend using the Reflex. The attachments, I go Quickdraw. That is for quick reactions and gunfights. It's really good to run on it, and Grip to help a little bit with the recoil of the gun. And the other perks are not really that useful. At laser sight, I suggest not ever hip firing with a burst fire weapon, because that is not going to work out. Maybe with laser sight you have a chance, but I suggest you just aim the weapon. Stock is actually pretty handy, because with tactical rifles you're going to move a little bit slow while aiming. The stock can help you out, but I generally say that you don't need it that much. Standing max, the more ammo is good, but I think it's a little less. It's not that much you get. You only get 12 more. I don't think that's worth it. And if you don't want to see on a radar, you can use a suppressor, but it reduces the range a little bit. But I just prefer using Quickdraw and grip. You definitely want to run the operator mod on this, because it increases the fire rate, the general fire rate, and you have the ability to just hold the trigger. When you hold the trigger, the gun will shoot faster the longer you held the trigger down. And the first two shots are generally going to be faster than when you don't use the repeater. So I would suggest use the repeater, because it increases the fire rate, and that is what this gun really needs. And if it doesn't have the repeater, I think this gun is really bad. So you definitely want to use the repeater to get the fire rate going. But because I use the operator mod, I have to sacrifice some perks, but I recommend having the engineer and the ghost perk, because they're mainly the must-have perks in this game. Coming up next is the SWORDFISH, what is a 4-round burst-fire tactical rifle. And mainly this is a really good gun. It has really good damage, has good range, fire rate is pretty good, and accuracy is also good. And operator mod, he has the Penta burst. So for optics, you have reflex, recon, holographic, dual zoom, threat detector, and the NVER. And for the attachments, you have quickdraw, suppressor, FMG, long barrel, quickdraw 2, hybrid max, and high caliber rounds. For the operator mod, you have Penta burst. What I use here is again the reflex sight. Although the scope what is on this weapon is actually pretty good, but I prefer the optic reflex, because it's still better in the close range environment. And for the attachments, I go quickdraw and hybrid max. I don't go quickdraw 2, because mainly this gun is really not meant for close range. It still can perform really good for close range, but you don't really need the quickdraw 2. But I prefer the more ammo, and the faster reload speed is kind of handy. And for the other attachments, high caliber rounds, you don't need high caliber rounds if you run Penta burst, but I'm getting back to that. FMG is not really that handy, just do not use it. And long barrel, this gun has already good range, so you don't really need long barrel or a suppressor to not get seen on the radar. But I generally say I don't really care about that. And the operator mod is the Penta burst, what makes this gun into a 5 burst weapon. And that is what this gun really becomes strong, because with 1 burst, you can insta-kill an enemy. And it also gives you a little bit more ammo, that is also nice. But you definitely want to run Penta burst, because it also becomes very good for close range, because you fire these bursts very quickly. The 5 shots are going to be really fast, but delay in the burst may be a problem from close range. But if you can hit all the shots from the first burst, they're going to be pretty much instant death, and also from long range as well, if they're not that far, because range fall off will definitely play a role there. But you definitely can one-shot people with 1 burst, so this makes this gun really strong, and that is why you want to run Penta burst on it. And because I use the operator mod, I have to sacrifice the perks, so just focus on engineer and ghost. I'm going to talk a little bit about the operator mod from the AUGER, and that is the double tap. It converts this weapon into a 2 burst weapon. It increases the fire rate in general, but like I said before, the recoil is kind of weird, and I'd say that this, you don't really need it to use this weapon, so better just use the perks with it without the operator mod. And for the ABR, if you do not want to use the operator mod, I suggest you use this setup. It's just the same attachments and optic, but with the dexterity and the dead silence. And same goes for the SWORDFISH. It's just without the operator mod and dexterity and dead silence. But now guys, those were all the 3 tactical rifles class setups, and now I'm going to rank them to worst to best. Coming up first is the AUGER, and that's because this weapon is really just for long range focused gunfights and not really for close range, although the high caliber rounds will help you out. But keep in mind you have to aim for the upper chest, and that is not always the issue. But there's also a thing that it is a semi-automatic, so if you miss one of your shots against a full auto weapon, this is going to pretty much kill you. But I think this weapon really shines in long range, and that is because it is, of course, a semi-automatic. It is really accurate, so you're probably going to win from a lot of guns from long range. And this weapon has a really quick time to kill. You basically need 2 shots in the upper chest using high caliber rounds. And if you can score a headshot and they're already like damaged, you're pretty much going to one-shot them. So the headshot damage is also really nice, but in that case, it is really up to you that you can really aim for the head and the upper chest. But this gun is really accurate and has really low recoil, so that wouldn't be that much of an issue. But you run into trouble when if people are close range, because they're going to be moving around a lot, so it is harder to actually land your shots. But the headshot damage, if you can land those off, you're going to be guaranteed to have close range wins with the gun. But in general, this gun is not that bad, only I have an issue with it for close range. But other than that, the gun is really good, but the others are just a little bit better. Coming up second is the ABR, and if you use the repeater, this gun can be a real beast because the kill time is really quick because you only need to burst, and running a repeater increases the fire rate, so the time to kill is also faster. This gun is very good for long range and for close range if you use the repeater. But I have one thing to say: if you do not use the repeater, I think the AUGER is actually going to be better in general, because the bursts are going to be very slow. And the thing is, if you miss a burst, you can end up losing a gunfight, but with a repeater you can just quickly shoot the other burst while holding down the trigger, so it's much easier to get kills. Also, the attachment Quickdraw is really good for quick reaction in gunfights, and the grip will also help with the recoil a little bit. I'm not saying that the recoil of this gun is really perfect, it's still a little bit off, but when you use the grip it is okay. But if you don't, then it is a little bit off, but not that bad. Also, the repeater is very nice to kill a lot of enemies in a quick succession, because you can just hold down the trigger and it will end up increasing the fire rate even more. So in general, this weapon is good if you use the repeater, and the attachments can help you out as well. And if not, I think this gun is not really that usable against the other tactical rifles, but in general it is second place for me. So for the best tactical rifle, and that is the SWORDFISH, and that is because if you run Penta burst, this gun is really one of the best guns in the game, because this gun has a really quick time to kill, and that is mainly because having Penta burst shoots 5 rounds, and those 5 rounds they can one-shot a person, and the burst shoots really fast, and the overall fire rate is really good on this gun between the burst compared to the ABR, because the ABR is much lower if you don't use the repeater. But in general, this burst fire rate is really good, and you can kill a lot of enemies in a quick succession because you only need 1 burst. Because this gun is so accurate, it is much easier to hit all the 5 shots from the burst. And with the Quickdraw attachment, it is really easy to win gunfights from close ranges, because you can react much faster and you only have to shoot 1 burst at them. But you don't have to worry about missing though, because the general fire rate of this weapon is good between the burst, so you can still win gunfights if you have to shoot twice, so don't worry about that. Compared to the other tactical rifles, this gun is also really great for long range, so it kind of beats the AUGER, and for the ABR it kind of beats it in the close range and in the long range, so this pretty much is better than all tactical rifles. But in general, this gun also beats the other weapons like submachine guns and the light machine guns and assault rifles. So in general, this is one of the best guns you can use if you use Penta burst, because if you use it normally, it is kind of off, because you need that extra round for the one-shot kill with the burst. So guys, those were the tactical rifles ranked worst to best with the best class setups you can use. But that wraps up the video, and I thank you guys for watching. If you find this video helpful, don't forget to hit the like button, and if you want more gaming videos like this one, then you could subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss anything. But I see you in the next video, and have an awesome day.
guys.